You know, I just finished my 10th year, and there are so many things that when you enter the legislature you have in your mind, you know, these are my focuses, and then you get in there and you realize there's so much more that goes into running a state, and you start learning about all these other areas that you might not have been as familiar with. So there are always issues that need to be addressed. That doesn't mean I'm going to run forever trying to correct everything, but I think that as my sphere of legislation has broadened into things like public safety and supports for disabilities and things like that. Those are issues that I didn't know going in, and I just want to advance them a little bit further while I have that knowledge. I've accumulated that knowledge before I pass the torch to someone else. Well, as a combination of, I'm a constituent, I have to live with all the laws that we pass, just like everybody else. But as certain insights as being a business owner, a mother, a parent, I'm engaged in the community, so I think that gives me a broad sense of what this area would like to see in public policy. Constituent outreach is probably the number one, and that happens in a lot of ways. Just whether it's you can go the more formal town hall style. You can just be out in public, just restaurants, community events, benefits for other charities. Those are all grocery shopping. Those are all places where people come up to me and say, I have an idea, or there is a problem, I'd like to see this addressed. What can you do? Who can you guide me to or direct me to? It's constant. So being out there and being available is probably the biggest obligation. And then respectful listening to ideas that are contrary to your own. Everybody has a right to say what they think, and I think that as an elected official, it is important to listen to those ideas. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you do have to give them the opportunity to voice their concerns, and look for that nugget, even if it's basically everything you disagree with. Is there anything in that conversation that you can take and incorporate that will make the policy better? Well, education, taking up 50% of our budget is a pressing issue, and it has changed so much over the last, I will say decades. This is nothing that's new, and there's a lot of different ways that people want to pursue education. So addressing that is our biggest fiscal responsibility. Others who are unable to provide for themselves, and I really want to focus on that unable, not unwilling. So those who, no matter what you do, could not be a self-sustaining, functioning member of society. I mean, I'm talking mostly about the disabilities sector. I think that we have an obligation to make sure that they are taken care of sufficiently. Healthcare costs is something that's been on the horizon for a few years now, and we launched that task force to come up with the recommendations and see where we can improve healthcare, access without lowering the outcomes. So we have to maintain a good outcome, whatever policies we come up with. We are in a good position financially as a state, with the $6 billion surplus that was unexpected, but the forecasts are already, with the inflation that is happening, the forecasts have already indicated that we're going to lose about a third of that right off the top in the next cycle. So while many people have come up with very good ideas on what we can spend our surplus on, we still have to say no to a lot of good ideas because our surplus is a one-time money. It's not a sustainable revenue stream. So if we spend it on a program that we implement, then we have to be able to fund that down the road. If we invest it in one-time structures or one-time investments, then that might be the better way to spend the state surplus, because you can only spend that nickel once. And with all the proposals that we have gotten, we've spent the $6 billion and then some. But public safety is one. We're seeing a shortage of interested recruits for both law enforcement, EMTs, fire, even into the medical field. So we're trying to figure out a way to not only recruit but retain those, because it's specialized training. Obviously education is another, because that's the long term. What you do now is what you're going to get in 10 years, 20 years. The healthcare is, of course, still a big issue. That is just a huge portion of folks' income, whether they're paying for insurance or paying deductibles, especially when it becomes a catastrophic issue. It can be financial ruin for families, and are the costs involved in that on par with other areas of the country? And obviously one of the studies said that we are not. We are significantly higher, multiple times higher in many cases. And just basically the fiscal responsibility, again, we have a surplus. How do we deal with that on an ongoing basis? And one of the proposals has been, if we have a surplus, maybe we should just collect fewer taxes. So what's the best way to do that? We cut the tax in the last session, the income tax. So the less money you give the government, then the less we have to worry about what to do with it and then turn around and send it back to you in the form of a taxpayer refund.